Good morning, everyone. What's up? What's up? Hope you guys are doing well. Today is Friday, May the 15th. Currently in the pre-market, you can see we're gapping down here on the overall indices. ES down about 1%. NQ down about 1.5% here. So a couple names dropping on a Friday after making a brand new all-time highs yesterday. So a little bit of a bigger pullback here. At least for this week in specific, SPY, of course, has been leading the markets. Qs and a couple other semiconductors have been lagging behind. Nvidia is, of course, at all-time highs, but some of the memory names have been lagging just a little bit. We'll kind of talk about what to expect moving forward, at least for today, and of course, coming into the following weeks. Before we head onto the charts, what's up, everyone? Good morning, P1, Kelvin, Victor, Maria, B Roots. What's up, Vate, Lamit, Michael? What's up, everyone? Knight, Gerald. Good morning, Chris, Robert, Francisco, Danny, Sam, Gusta. What's up, everyone? Always the same people at the top. Yeah, and those people are always first. What's up, everyone? Good morning. Usually watch these after. First time watching, I feel like I know y'all by the shoutouts. What's up, Gerald? Yeah, good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's go on to the charts. First things first, as you can see, currently the markets are pulling back, right? If we look at the futures, or if we even look at the major indices themselves, we're doing quite a bit here in the pre-market and overnight sessions. As you can see, from yesterday's close to now today's open, we're about to open down, as I mentioned, about 1.5%. So pretty big gap down here on the Qs, kind of right back into its range for at least this week. So Monday, we end up having a nice push higher, back up and towards all-time highs. Tuesday drop, and then Wednesday we end up reclaiming back above, and then yesterday a nice break and retest above that Monday's highs. And now you can see in the actual after hours, we end up using this as a retest for the downside here on the futures. So at least for this week in specific, I am fairly neutral, as you can see right here for the NQ features, right? Nice break and retest yesterday towards the upside. And then you can see in the overnight session, pretty big drop here. And now we're more neutral, at least for this week. If we look at this on the weekly time frame perspective, right, as you can see here for the NQ, this is most likely going to be the first week that we close neutral. As you can see here, we're going to have this upper wick. As you can see, markets are most likely going to close kind of right at its market open for this week. We could see a potential green day today and a strong candle close back above its previous candle high. But most likely currently, as we speak, we're going to have somewhat of a neutral close on the overall markets, right? ES still a little bit more bullish, as you can see here, but a little bit of a bigger upper wick on the weekly count. Same thing with the Qs, right? Any sort of consolidation or even potential pullback is somewhat kind of expected now after having this big push higher. So if we start off on the weekly time frame, this is where we're currently at. If we go into the daily chart, just today so far, or at least the past couple of days throughout this week, as I mentioned, a little bit more neutral after this candle that's most likely going to end up closing here today. So for the NQ, at least the game plan coming to market open, if we're on the higher time frames, right, what we have here on the hourly chart is going to be this 29,500. So at least for today in specific, not as bullish in the markets, right? We are still building up these higher lows here on the hourly time frame. And we're still very much bullish on the higher time frames as well. But if we're looking for an intraday move back towards the upside, it's going to have to do quite a bit. I personally would like to see it back above this 29,500 on the hourly time frame for continuation towards the upside. Really, this is the only level that I have marked out. And currently, you can see we end up using this as a retest here in the pre-market. If the markets, let's say, for example, do want to drop today, so for the Qs, we do have a little bit of room towards the downside, back down in towards our 704. Other levels that we have is, yeah, really the 704, and then of course our weekly lows, which is all the way down in towards that 698, which I'm not expecting the markets to gravitate down towards there. But coming to market open, right around this 709 today, and then the key level here is that previous day lows, which is at 714. So right now we're underneath that previous day lows. Similar thing to what happened here on Tuesday. And also Wednesday here as well. If we do want to see some upside, we'd like to see it back above our previous day lows. And as you can see, our previous day lows here is at 714. You can see once we reclaim, that's when we had that nice push towards the upside. Similar kind of scenario. Now it's more looking for kind of these dip ads for potential push higher. The reclaim above our 714, not really in play today, since that would be a pretty big push. And of course, on a Friday, it might be a little bit more difficult, but we have to wait for that 714 reclaim here on the Qs. And a lot of times, especially if you're trying to buy a dip on a Friday, a good rule of thumb is that the markets generally, if we do have a trendy day towards the downside, don't really bottom on Fridays. Normally, we'll end up having even a potential bounce on Monday or Tuesday of next week. But at least for today, let's kind of go on to the game plan. Number one, we'll talk about the game plan actually just coming into market open today. We'll do a little bit more of a deeper dive on what to expect coming to next week, most likely on the weekend or even on Monday. But let's talk about the game plan in today in specific on the major indices, at least for the SPY coming to market open here. As you can see, nice push towards the upside. Ended up closing fairly strong here on that daily candle on the higher time frames. As you can see, the daily candle ended up closing strong, but now we're currently opening up well underneath our previous day lows and honestly back down in towards our Monday's highs of this week. So as you can see here, key level that we're going to have marked out is going to be that previous day lows. The next levels that matter is, of course, our Monday's highs. So as you can see here for SPY, pretty big drop in the pre-market and after hours, opening up well underneath our previous day lows here as well. So coming to market open here today, if we do want to see potential more downside is in play today. So today is a day where we can be looking for both sides, right? Upside and downside in the markets. This is like the first day where we're showing a little bit more weakness. We had a gap down earlier into the week, but that one was still holding above key levels. Today we had that nice push towards the yesterday we had that nice close, but now we're gapping down about 1.3%. So bigger gap down well underneath our previous day lows here as well. So we can be looking for shorts underneath that 740 for a potential move down in towards that 736. If we do want to reclaim back above, potentially create a higher low here above that 740, we can look for a trade back up in towards that previous day lows, which is that 744. As for the Qs, I talked about this one being a little bit weaker than the SPY. We're actually underneath that Monday's lows. So underneath that Monday's lows, 710, we can keep an eye out on a push down in towards that 704 here. Upside on the tech has been a little bit more difficult this week. So you can see the SPY has been leading the markets higher. If you're trying to long tech this week, right, there's still some nice opportunity, but compared to the previous weeks when tech was leading the market, this week I'd say is a little bit more difficult if you're trying to long most tech names. And then if you're looking at the memory names, as you can see right here on the SMH, right, not too much strength compared to the other indices this week in specific. Obviously, if we're looking at this on the weekly time frame, look how bullish the SMH has been. We're up about 7 weeks in a row green. As you can see here on the daily time frame, at least this week in specific, we didn't have too much continuation above our Monday's highs of this week, compared to something like SPY, where you can see really solid push towards the all-time highs. Qs, we ended up getting that nice retest yesterday. SMH, as you can see, kind of just broke above our previous high that we created here on Monday, and now we're having a little bit more of a rejection. So for the semis, definitely this week, slowing down, but obviously the higher time frame is very much bullish. So we'll talk about kind of the names to look out for here on the higher time frames, but at least for the SMH here today, key levels that we have marked out is this 5 465. This is our previous day highs here as well. If you want to see some upside, we need to see the reclaim back above for continuation towards the upside. If we reject off this level, we can see a little bit more downside. Next key level support is actually all the way back down in towards our 540. So that's what we have on the SMH coming into market open here. If we go now on to a couple other major indices, IWM still in a good spot here, holding up here on the higher time frames. Previous retests forming this daily kind of wedge pattern now. We would like to see the 280 hold for continuation towards the upside. But currently, right, that's going to be your key level 280 that you like to see on IWM. So the game plan coming into today and coming into the next week is to see names that are holding up. So on this market pullback, we're going to keep an eye out on the tech names that are holding up the strongest. And those are the names that we're going to be looking for continuation. Names that have been lagging behind, or names that are pulling back more sharper or haven't really moved with the overall markets. We're going to be a little bit more hands off on those ones. But the names that are holding up and have relative strength on the higher time frames, those are the names that are going to be the first ones to get bought up. But yeah, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is going to be in the description below. All right, let's first talk about Tesla here. So Tesla, as you can see, we're on the higher time frames. Tesla, we're getting a little bit of reaction here off that 450 after having this nice break on the daily chart back towards the upside. So for Tesla moving forward, really we can be looking for one of two things. We can be looking for that 450 break, which is going to be key, or now we just be waiting for any sort of higher low here on the daily chart, which as you can see, Tesla can pull back all the way down in towards that 410 and still be bullish here on the daily for that daily higher low, or we can just be waiting for that 450 break for that continued push back up and towards our all-time highs. Regardless, Tesla, of course, looks good here on the higher time frames. So for Tesla, we're just going to mark out our key levels, at least intraday. Some of the levels that we have marked out is our 450. Oops, let me go back on this. We have that 450. We also have our 430. That's a key level from this week here as well. If we want to see some upside or continued upside on Tesla, preferably hold this 430, continuation back up and towards that 440 and above. But Tesla, will keep an eye on it moving forward, at least for today, right? We'd still like to see these higher lows be built on the hourly time frame. If we do break underneath now, we can see a little bit more downside. As you can see, we kind of broke this mini downtrend, or this trend line that we had. So we're losing a little bit of momentum here on a couple of these names. As for Nvidia, Nvidia is one of my main watches. I've been talking about Nvidia for the past couple of days now and past weeks. This one's going to show the most strength. So Nvidia is my main watch coming into the following weeks, right? As long as you can maintain above our 210, that's going to be key for continuation towards the upside. So for Nvidia, as you can see, we're coming back down in towards a couple of daily gaps that we have. So what we have is our gap that we've created from, this is on Wednesday to Thursday. What I like to see here is now just the hold of our 228. So Nvidia is going to be one of the main ones to keep an eye out for. If the markets do want to bounce, Nvidia, we can expect a bounce here as well off that 228. I like this one for continuation back towards the upside. If we're looking at this on the daily chart here as well, if you're looking at this, higher lows have been built. Nice break and retest off that 195, continuation higher. Nvidia, as I mentioned, can pull back all the way down in towards our 215, and we can create this higher low here on the daily chart and it'd still be bullish. So Nvidia is one of the best looking higher time frame charts. Right now we have this mini gap, so most likely we're just going to kind of hold this gap, push back towards the upside. But if we even have a bigger pullback here on Nvidia, that will look good off that 220 for that continuation. So Nvidia is probably the best looking higher time frames, or one of the better looking higher time frames here. AMD, similar thing. I like AMD. Nice consolidation here now off the highs. Let's see if we can hold this 420 for this continued pushback towards the upside. We're coming back down in towards our 90 EMA here as well. So for AMD, keep an eye on this 420 bounce for continuation. Coming into next week, we kind of have this mini daily flag pattern here as well. So AMD looks good. Key levels that we have marked out is our 430. That's really one of the main levels that we have. Let me just get rid of this. So for AMD, main levels that we have is going to be that 430, forming this kind of higher time frame wedge pattern. As I mentioned, a hold of our 430, we can see a push higher, right? But we like to see a little bit tighter, right? This 1 hour flag pattern was a lot better, right? You can see the break above our previous day highs is going to be the trigger point. So until we can break above the previous day highs, we're going to be a little bit more hands off. If we do break underneath that 430, we can see a little bit more downside back down in towards that 400, and that would be your next best buying opportunity. But keep an eye on that 430 coming into market open here. That's going to be key on AMD. Apple, this one, key levels that we have marked out is going to be that 295. If you do want to see any sort of potential bounce play here, 295 continuation back towards the upside on Apple. If we break underneath that 295, we can see a little bit of a pullback down in towards the 292 here on Apple. As for a few other tickers, Google, nice push up in towards our all-time highs. Now you can see a little bit of reaction off that level, and we're just going to consolidate a little bit more. So something like Google, be a little bit more patient on here now as well after hitting our all-time highs. This one, nice rally, a little bit of seller stepping in, and now we're back down in towards that 390. So not too much opportunity here on Google. Maybe you're looking for this higher low to be built for a trade back up in towards our all-time highs, basing above this 387. That's potentially in play here. Microsoft showing a little bit of strength here. This is kind of the only ticker that's green in the pre-market compared to everything else. As for Microsoft, really hasn't done too much after earnings. That was earlier in May. If we do want to see a potential earnings reversal, still in play back above that 412 is needed for that continuation up and towards 420 and above. Microsoft, as you can see right here, if we're looking at this week's price action, Monday's highs, or if we can get above this right here, 414, we can see a potential move back towards the upside. As for Meta, right in between the range, not too much to talk about on this one. Amazon, similar thing, kind of right in between this earnings high and low, not too much to talk about on that one. And Netflix, similar thing, right in between the middle of the range. So at least on the Mag 7 wise, with the Qs pulling back here, there's not too many names that are showing relative strength besides Nvidia in some of the semis. So really the game plan, at least coming into next week, is going to be looking for pullbacks on Nvidia for continuation towards the upside. We'll also keep an eye out on Tesla here as well off that 430. And then AMD, at least based off the hourly time frame, we can keep an eye out on this 430 level. That's going to be key here as well. Not expecting it to move today. The bounce play here is in play off that 435, or now we're going to have to wait for the consolidation and then break above our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside here as well. So we'll keep an eye on AMD in the next couple of sessions. At least for the rest of the names, we can go on to some other semis and some memory names here as well. But you can see memory is a little bit weaker, right? A lot of names were green yesterday. We have MU, SNDK, Intel, WDC down at least this week. We'll talk about if we're going to look to buy the dip here on the higher time frames. But yeah, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, as I mentioned, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that is in the description below as well. When you consider downside intraday trade on Nvidia, what do you think will be confirmation? Nvidia, I don't really like Nvidia shorts. Nvidia is like the biggest, the most strongest name in the past 2 weeks. I would not be interested. There's a lot of better names to look for a potential downside move compared to Nvidia. Qs well underneath our previous day lows. Nvidia is just right out of our previous day lows. So this is showing some strength, right? There's not too much room towards the downside, to be honest, on Nvidia. Maybe you can get some sort of short down in towards that 227. But as I mentioned, buyers could very much well step in here and right move back up and towards that 232. So Nvidia would be a little bit more hands off on the downside. Are you interested in trading CBRS? Yeah, we'll go over CBRS. This one is a fresh IPO that got listed. Valuation was supposed to come in at 150 a share, came in, opened up at 350. So this one, previous day lows, you want to have marked out, especially if you're looking to trade these IPOs. You have to be very cautious. If you're looking for investment wise, the valuations, yeah, they're supposed to come in at 150. Shares came in around 350. I would be very cautious. Kind of similar to like coin IPO. A lot of the IPOs, generally speaking, will head lower, right? You could see maybe a short-term move towards the upside, maybe for a day trade, but most likely 6 months to a year from now, this is going to be maybe 250, 200 a share. So for this one coming into today, keep an eye out on your previous day lows. You're just going to base it off of intraday price action. Not really too much to base it off of, but previous day low, rejection, continuation towards the downside. If we can get back above our previous day lows and kind of base, potential move back up and towards our pre-market highs, 330. Not sure. Yeah, options usually aren't available for a little bit, but currently there is no option chain on this one. So the only buy trades that on downside and not upside. So the only buy trades that are, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. All right, let's go on to the tickers that we have. All right, starting off with MU. So MU and a couple of these names pulling back here. As you can see, a little bit more kind of consolidation at the top. If we're looking at this one on the daily chart, still very much bullish, right? It can even pull back down in towards our 750 and be bullish for continuation towards the upside, right? 750 for a push towards the highs. If we're looking at this week in specific on MU, key levels that we have marked out is our 780. That was key here. We kind of drew out this trend line. We wanted to see this flat top break here as well. Currently breaking underneath our 780. So now you can see a little bit of weaker price action. So for MU and a lot of these names, we're starting to lose a little bit of momentum. This is the first sign of weakness. This does not mean the markets are going to reverse. This just means this is the first sign that the markets are currently slowing down and not having as much continuation higher. Right, on a couple of these ones, if I was to just draw this kind of overall trend line, does this mean the structure has broken? No. Right, we're still building higher lows here on the hourly time frame. Right, we can even reclaim back above and would still be very much bullish towards the upside. But this is a key level we wanted to see hold yesterday, 780 for potential break and retest above our 820. Now the flat top is just not going to form as nicely. So for MU, breaking underneath that 780, now we're gapping down. If we do want to see continued upside here on MU, right, the reclaim setup is going to have to be in play. And a lot of the names are going to have to reclaim if we want to see some strength, right? For MU now, I'm not that interested in some downside, but MU potentially could pull back underneath our 740 today. We can see continuation down towards that 710. If let's say, for example, we had a huge bounce and then we end up rejecting off that previous day lows, this is also a potential shorting opportunity back towards the downside here as well. SNDK, this one not dropping as much here in the pre-market, but a little bit of a pullback on the daily time frame. And now we're kind of consolidating after having this nice base, right, breakout, continuation, and now we're having a little bit of a pullback. So now on a lot of these names, especially some of the memory and Intel, what we're going to keep an eye out for is the potential next leg back towards the upside. So right now with the markets pulling back, right, these names are going to be pulling back, of course, because they're a little bit weaker for this week. But now we like to see them base and then eventually head back up and towards our all-time highs. As for SNDK, there's not really too much to talk about. Intel is in a good area here as well. This one already had a nice push towards the highs. Now Intel is pulling back. What I would like to see on this one is the hold of this down close candle. 110. This is going to be the best case scenario, right? Intel could have a little bit of a bigger push down, but if we can get that strong daily candle close what I'd like to see is Intel really hold that 110 level for that push back up in towards that upside. Now this would more look like that first pullback here on the daily time frame. At least intraday wise, not too much to talk about. And Intel coming to market open, we're underneath that previous day lows. This one's been fairly weak coming into this week here. You can see Monday's price action, right? Tuesday drop, Wednesday drop, Thursday underneath our lows that we created here, plus that news candle. So Intel a little bit more weaker coming into this week. Key levels that we have marked out is going to be that 110. So for Intel, if you want to see some buyers step in, 110 bounce for a pushback up and towards that 116 here is in play. As for some downside here on Intel, either that pop and fade off our previous day lows, or if we get underneath that 108, we can see actually a bigger move towards the downside. 100 is in play here on Intel. And then for WDC, this one kind of consolidating, breaking back underneath this 480. All right, so the game plan, at least coming to market open here today, at least intraday, we're going to be open to playing both sides. So open to playing both sides here in the markets. I'm open to playing upside or the downside. We're going to have to now base it off of intraday price action along with our levels earlier in this week. So Wednesday's lows is going to be key here for Qs along with our 709 on 709. As for the SPY, Monday's highs is going to be key, 740. That's going to be the guide coming into market open here on the SPY chart. At least for everything else coming to market open, as I mentioned, I'm open to playing both sides. A lot of these ones, momentum is slowing down, as I kind of talked about earlier, right? Even on Tesla, right? Momentum slowing down just a little bit. If you're looking at MU, you're looking at Nvidia, right? You can kind of just draw at this kind of basic trend line, and you can see this is our first sign of a little bit of weakness here coming to market open. So we're going to be a little bit more patient here today. I'm open to playing both sides here today. So the past couple of weeks, you normally hear me just talk about only shaping up for a long thesis because the market's been fairly bullish. At least for today, similar thing. I like longs towards the upside, but I'm open to playing downside here as well. So not opposed if the markets do want to show a little bit more weakness. We can be looking for a couple names for some downside here. Let's look at some other tickers here as well. If you guys want to drop some in the chat. Yeah, TSM hit all-time highs. That was a nice move yesterday, but now you're having a little bit of rejection here. But nice kind of break and retest right off our key level, 790. Now we're kind of coming back down in towards the middle of the range. NBIS, this is the one that's been holding up. If you're looking at this one, break retest continuation, break retest continuation towards the upside. NBIS here, really very strong, right? Still above our previous day lows. If you want to see continued upside on NBIS, right, this is our earnings high here. We just like to see it above our 216, continuation back up in towards our previous day close and above here on NBIS. The memory ETF here, as you can see, a little bit of a gap down for the DRM. Sorry, DRAM key levels that we have marked out is our 52. As you can see currently breaking underneath here, we can see room down in towards our low that we created for this week. So memory, if we want to see some upside here, is going to have to reclaim back above 52 for continuation. If we break underneath our pre-market lows now, we can see room down in towards our 4850s on this name. But yeah, let's see. IWM went over that one. Save your cash. Your cash is coming between 2027 2030. The bottom will be 2030 and buy every. Yeah, at least for the right, we're eventually going to have a pullback, but definitely don't want to miss out on this run, especially on a lot of these tickers. Obviously, it's pretty overextended now, but a run like this, right, you don't want to miss out on this run trying to time the bottom. Right, whatever they say is true, right? Time in the markets, right? If you're trying to find the bottom maybe in April or earlier in March, thinking it was going to crash, right? You would have missed out on this whole rally if you're looking for some downside or if you just didn't really participate in this rally. I still think there's more room towards the upside. We are eventually going to have a pullback. That's inevitable. But at least for now, we're just going to trade what's in front of us. Okay, let me go over a couple more tickers. EVGO, all-time highs. Nice push yesterday on AVGO, and now we're having a little bit of reaction, kind of back in between our range that we have created here. So a little bit of rejection here off that all-time highs, and now back inside the middle of the range. Oracle, similar thing. A lot of these ones hit all-time highs, and now we're back inside the middle of the range. So coming into market open here today, there's not too many names that I at least like for upside, for momentum, right? A lot of the names, if you're looking for upside today, are going to be dip ads, and you're going to look for like a longer term intraday reversal back towards the upside. There's going to be no momentum today on the upside because we're well underneath our previous day lows, well underneath our previous day highs. So we're just going to be looking for, right, if you want to look for day trades back towards the highs, you're going to be looking for dip ads, or we can be looking to short that first pop for continuation lower. So the key levels that we have coming into market open here is, as I mentioned, going to be that 710, and we also have our 706. Kind of already laid out the game plan. It seems like we're having a lot of action here in the pre-market. So most likely we're going to be a little bit more hands off today. We kind of did quite a bit here in the pre-market and after hours. We end up breaking back underneath, retest continuation lower. Now we're kind of retesting off this level, and we're about to continue all the way back down in towards this low here, which is at 29,100. So for the ES and NQ coming to market open, right? ES also now getting back underneath our 74.50s, which happens to be our Monday's lows. There's room down in towards that 736. So coming into market open, we're just going to be a little bit more patient here today after having a pretty big gap down. I do expect a little bit more kind of consolidation right off the bat. So we're going to wait for that first kind of 15 to 30 minutes to develop. And of course, if nothing really happens within that first 15 to 30 minutes, you want to be a little bit more patient, especially with a Friday, with it being a Friday here as well. But really game plan, as I mentioned, just open to playing both sides today. If you are going to take any trades today, just keep an eye out on the key levels that we have marked out. Be open to playing both sides. So today is a day I'm open to playing both sides, just based off the pre-market action, just based off of the weekly action that we've had here, with, of course, tech being a little bit weaker. As for some of the setups I'm interested in, Nvidia is actually going to already fill its gap coming to market open, but for some downside moves potentially we can keep an eye out on. AMD, if we want to show a little bit more weakness underneath this 430, potential room towards the downside. Some other tickers that look good. Amazon maybe underneath that 264. I don't really like too much downside, right? The higher time frame is still bullish, but we can be looking for a couple intraday downtrends today. MU underneath now, it's going to be that 750 here for potential room down in towards that 710. Intel is a little bit weaker. We can keep an eye out on our previous day lows here on this one. It's going to be that 114. But yeah, coming into market open here today, we're going to be a little bit more patient. If the markets, let's say, do want to have a drop coming into market open, don't try and time the bottom, at least for a Friday, right? Let's say the markets want to drop right off the bat and Qs wants to break underneath our low that we created here on Wednesday. Don't try and find a bottom today, especially if the markets want to show a lot more weakness. You can maybe try and buy a dip later into the market open, right? Later into the session, or maybe coming into close. But if the markets do want to drop right off the bat, right, be a little bit more cautious because normally, right, markets, especially with this gap down, we won't try and find a bottom here on Friday. But yeah, we'll use that opening range as a guide. That's going to be key today. So we'll mark out that 5 and 15-minute opening range and base our trades off of that as well. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today. INTC, went over Intel already, but this one's gapping down here. We're just going to be a little bit more patient now. If we're looking at this one on the weekly time frame, this is going to be our first bearish weekly candle being put in here on Intel. So as you can see, a little bit of rejection off our highs. Intel could come all the way back down in towards that 100 and still be bullish. So, right, this week is going to close bearish, but we'll see how that next week candle forms. Maybe it pulls all the way back down in towards that 100. We can see some nice buyers step in, and then we can look for a weekly higher low for that pushback up in towards our all-time highs. But at least for now on Intel, underneath our previous day lows, so you're going to just be a little bit more patient, right? Upside trades, if you want to try and buy the dip, as I mentioned, you can do that offer 108. That is in play. If no buyers step in here off this 108, then the next level here is going to be all the way back down in towards that 100. So this is the game plan here for Intel. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today. I am going to get ready for market open here now. If you guys did enjoy that, I appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is going to be in the description below. And yeah, with that being said, I have a YouTube video coming out on Sunday, and then I'll have a recap for you guys potentially tomorrow on Saturday, or it'll be on Monday of next week. Yeah, that's going to be it for me today. I hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.